eNCA Money Desk now, Devin Murugan joining us again. So Dev, business and households will actually have to wait as the energy regulator, NERSA, decides on that Eskom tariff increase.
That's right, Jahan. What is clear at this stage is that the tariff increase would mean that many would either be forced to reduce power consumption or would need to cut back on other expenditures to actually pay the new electricity tariff. Eskom has asked for a 20.5% increase. We are at that stage where NERSA, the regulator, is done with hearings and now considers how steep of an increase it would approve come April the 1st. Eskom's Chief Financial Officer, Calib Cassim, is with us this evening. Calib, thanks very much indeed for your time. So you had a chance again on Friday to make a plea to the energy regulator for those tariffs. You asked them to be objective in their decision. What did you mean by that?
I think, good evening, Devin, and to the audience. Most importantly, we believe that as Eskom, we've done everything in our control to ensure that our cost escalations are within inflation or single digit. And it's important to judge the cost escalations of Eskom within its merits and the evidence that we've provided. I think the other point we've made clearly, we accept and we're very sympathetic to affordability for the customers, but there should be different mechanisms, both within the regulator and government policy, to address affordability.
And I want to pick up on that point, Caleb, because there are those who have said the point of departure should not be what Eskom needs, but what people can actually afford. Why wouldn't this work?
So ultimately, I mean, there's a cost to generating this electricity. And importantly, any organization or utility, if we continue to supply our product and we don't recover that cost of efficient operations, and we're only asking for efficient operations, plus to cover your debt service commitments, Eskom, as our shareholder being government, if we're not recovering it given through the electricity tariff, our only option then is to approach the shareholder and government to then help deal with the shortfall. And ultimately, the difficult situation is you need to choose between whether you pay for electricity directly as the consumer or indirectly as the taxpayer. And we understand it's more importantly and economically better from the electricity consumer base, which is far greater than the tax network that tax base that we do have.
At what point or at what increase or figure would you have to go to government if they do approve something?
So we've put 20.5 on the table. We believe that from our perspective, we would require a double-digit increase. Unfortunately, we understand the economic circumstances that is facing the country and the economy. But at the end of the day, government has already given us sufficient and quite a large amount of equity injections in the recent past, 56 billion, 49 billion, and 32 billion this year, including 21 billion for the next financial year and 20 billion thereafter. Given, I think, also from a fiscal's perspective, they are constrained. They've given us an indication that no further bailouts or support other than what is committed. So that is the dilemma that is facing the country, and importantly, the balance that the regulator has to make.
I know that these determinations and the mechanism by which they use to actually determine these price increases can get somewhat complicated. But just to narrow this down, in terms of costs at the moment to Eskom, what are the biggest factors weighing on the utility for you to push this request so high?
So I think firstly, we as Eskom accept what are we doing to keep the impact on the consumer as low as possible. We've been pushing for reducing our cost base by 20 billion per annum. In the last financial year, we've reduced by 14 billion. So far, we're on track for around 18, and we are pushing for 20 billion. So importantly, we must keep our cost escalations, especially coal has been single digit for the first time in a number of years. But what we do find, unfortunately, there are policy decisions that come through in terms of what we have to recover. As more and more bid windows of IPPs come online, yes, we accept that the cheaper ones, renewables, are coming through, but we've also got the risk mitigation programs that come at a much higher cost than Eskom's supply of electricity. And in the earlier bid windows were set at a very high price. Those escalations continue to come through. And as we all are aware, government has introduced a carbon tax legislation. And we do find that once Eskom has dealt with the rebates, so we start then becoming liable for carbon taxes. So unfortunately, there are some policy issues that are coming through as a pass-through mechanism in the overall price of electricity.
Mm-hmm. Calib, before I let you go, when would we likely hear from the regulator on what they've granted you?
Given the court has made a decision that the regulator should announce this by the 25th of February, so we await that decision. Thank you.
Calib Cassim, Eskom's CFO, thanks very much indeed for talking to us this evening.